Today I'm back here working on the LBZ Duramax, and my goal is to get the bed either prepped and ready to be taken off or removed completely. I got it shoved in the garage here, and I'm thinking I'll be able to use this lift to aid in removing the bed. Based on the amount of rust that's underneath this thing, I'm gonna have to fight it to get to that point. So I'm gonna put on my goggles, get underneath this thing, grab the impact, and try and get the bed bolts off. And then I can work on the filler neck, the wiring harness, the rear bumper. But I have a feeling I'm gonna end up cutting and fighting for a lot of this. So I'm gonna get started getting these bed bolts removed so I can get this old crappy service body ripped off the truck and replace it with the pickup box that I bought. So let's get started. Okay, bolt number one. Let's see what kind of job this is gonna be. Yep, pretty much exactly how I expected that to go. Excellent. Well, this is just gonna be fun. Well, that is definitely one of the more sketchy things I've done. I heated it up, kind of torched the nut as best as I could, and then I came back with the air hammer, and as you can see, I was able to pop the rest of the nut off and then pop the stud up into the bed. Thank goodness I didn't burn anything, because obviously the filler neck is there. Granted, diesel fuel is only really flammable once it's atomized, so it's not a huge danger, but it's definitely a little nerve-wracking torching that close to a fuel tank. Not recommended, but gotta do what you gotta do sometimes, and hopefully that was the hardest one. Now I'm gonna be moving towards the back. So as it turns out, the torch is the only useful tool on this job. I just got the front two bolts off, and then in the rear, I got 4 bolts here. So while I already get the torch out, and luckily there's no fuel tank back here, I'm just gonna go ahead and heat these up and use the air hammer to blast those off as well. Well, it doesn't take too much guessing to figure out that not a single one of those bolts was able to be removed with the impact. And I torched every last one out. So I had the 2 hitch bolts, the 8 in the back, 2 in the front, and I'm now at the point where I'm going to try and use the lift to lift the box off. We'll see if it works. So I got the bed lifted up in the front, but the back is stuck. And upon closer inspection, it looks like all the bolts I have removed, but it looks like there's some rust jacking that's kind of holding this all together. So where that bracket mounts is disconnected. It really is no longer bolted anywhere in here. So I believe it is just the rust on this corner holding the bed. So I'm gonna go ahead and try and break that loose with the air hammer. All right, I got this thing unhooked. I suppose I can pull it out of here now. There she is. Rusty. I'm actually not super confident standing under here. This thing's so rusty. You can see that's a better box. But I mean, some of these, that's scary. This one, it went through a little bit. But yeah, this is just a rusty old turd here. Now I got a lot of work to do. That's seen better days. Whoa, that's not good. A lot of work ahead here. Well, that would be the second time on this truck I've gotten a pile of progress. That is a massive rust pile. I don't know if I should be happy, sad, concerned. Now that I got the truck outside, I'm going to be using this Harbor Freight needle scaler to knock off all the remaining chunks of rust, and then I can see what needs to be welded and repaired. Well, not too shabby for one evening's worth of work. Got the service body off. Got a lot of the loose rust knocked free. Of course, there's still a little bit more I gotta do. Frame is not really in the best shape, but we can fix that. So I'm gonna remove the fuel tank here. As you can see, I already pulled the filler neck off. And really the reason being is so I can replace this cross member. Of course, this one holds the rear tank strap, which is rotted away. Popping these quick connect fuel lines off is anything but quick. You can see that line just rotted right through, which I believe is the return line. I'm gonna replace this fuel tank sending unit. So now I'm gonna have to pick that out of there. And hopefully I can get this tank to pull out without too much of a struggle. This is why you gotta wash your vehicle. All that rust builds up in there and rots everything out. So I finally got the new cross member, or the rear fuel tank cross member, I guess you would call it, into place. I had to notch this section, and of course I'll just weld this in its place. And then I have 2 panels to weld to there, and then the other side. So I'm gonna get everything all cleaned up, ground up, haul the welder out here and get this thing burned into place, and then I can move on to this rear cross member. Well, I got the outside plates all welded in here. So now I just got to get the inside plates welded in. Of course, this thing fits pretty good, but it's not perfect. That's all right. It's definitely fits good enough for what it was. So I'm gonna get this all finished welding in and cut off any excess, and this cross member will be complete. So I torched off the back side of these rivets in hopes that I could just slide that frame piece right into place, and then after I can punch one out at a time and replace with the bolt, and that way I won't have to remove these perches from the frame. So right now, before I slide that in, I'm gonna hit all this area with some rust converting paint. As soon as this water dries, I sprayed it down a little bit just to rinse any remaining junk out of there before I hit it with the paint. So I'm gonna let this dry, hit it with some paint, and then I'll get that cross member in. I got all the bolts in place here. I just used some of the bolts that this piece came with, these M12s, and then I got some 7/16 bolts here to further bolt in this cross member. Lock nuts, of course. I didn't put any bolts through the top just because I'm not sure how that works with the bed, if the bed sits flat on there, and those would protrude. So I figured I'll play it safe, not put anything in there for now, but I can always come back later and put a bolt in from the bottom side. So short of just this exhaust hanger here, which did not come on the new front cross member. So I got it ground off, as you guys saw. This is what I'm left with, got it all cleaned up. And then I can use that as my template to determine where exactly I should weld this. And by the time I'm done with this will all look really pretty factory for the most part. And then I'll get everything cleaned up and prepped for paint. Of course, it needs shocks. These are just the old shocks kind of sitting in place. I do have new shocks, so I'll get those on after this is all painted. As you can see here, I popped all the wheels off, got her on some jack stands. Got the old big pressure washer out today. I'm gonna get this whole frame cleaned up. I'm gonna clean up the whole frame of the truck, power wash it very thoroughly, because I plan on painting the entirety of the frame, not just where I made the repairs. Getting everything cleaned up and ready for primer and then paint. And I pulled back the wiring as much as I could. And obviously I'm gonna fix that brake line too. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and start power washing this thing up. Whole lot of plastic wrap later. Got the truck all masked off. Entire frame is exposed. Of course, I'm just gonna avoid the brake rotors and shoot everything else to the best of my ability here. Starting with a rusty metal primer and then moving into a low gloss black color. As you guys just saw, I got the first coat of paint on. That was just unthinned Rust-Oleum rusty metal primer. And that's the exact reason you always tape the full vehicle off. A lot of overspray, but seemed to work out pretty good. So I'll let that cure and then we can shoot black. And there we have it. That's 2 coats of low gloss black. Now I just gotta let this dry. And I gotta fix that because I didn't see it somehow. It just escaped me. Then I'll get the new shocks on. I did overspray a little on the exhaust, but I might just replace this exhaust anyway. Not certain yet. So yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how this came out. There's a couple spots I'll probably have to touch up, but that's all right. I'm gonna go ahead and install the new fuel tank sending unit. So I cleaned it all up, put a little grease on it, and it's back in place. Now this will seat nicely. Upon removing the bed, I did find that there was this brake line that's copper line. It's non-original, so I figured I would buy new brake lines. I got this Dorman kit from Rock Auto. It was about $75, and it includes all the brake lines for this truck, and they're all pre-bent. So the rest of them actually appeared to be OEM and rust-free, but this rear one, at some point, much like the rest of the frame, rusted out and was replaced with this copper line. But I don't like this. I'm just going to replace it while I'm here, while the bed's off. It'll be super simple. So I'm going to go ahead and install that. So I'm going to try and reuse the filler neck that was on this truck. To buy a replacement, it's close to $200, so I don't really want to spend money on that. To replace this old return line, I just got some 5/8 heater hose. Try and get it set up to where I think it's going to be, and then I'll, I guess, just drop the bed into place. I almost forgot to show you guys the new shocks. I picked these up from the Advanced Auto Parts that went out of business, so I think I only paid about $15 to $20 each. So pretty good deal on that. Got those in. I just had some metric, I believe those are 14 millimeter bolts that I had to replace it with.